Good evening, everybody. It's so fun to have a fuller house. Yeah, right? There's just something really special about this. So thank you for giving up your Saturday, your beautiful Saturday evening to be with us. I have a few announcements that I wanted to point out. Many of you have heard these before. Some are repeats for you. But just in case they're not, and for anyone that's listening at home and online, first of all, you can go to our online communication card, and we love to hear from you at brookviewchurch.com. If you click on the Contact tab, there will be this screen, and you can fill out your card and respond, tell us what's going on throughout your week. But in addition to that, we now are sending out text alerts for different things as they're going on. And so there are different ways for you to subscribe to different lists that you could be on. And so the 425-406-3660 is a Brookview number, and that is what will come through your cell phone when you're signing up for these lists. And so they look like this. You text the word announce to that number, and it will automatically put you in a list of people that get weekly announcements about what's going on here. Now, you'll notice this week there was nothing, because there was nothing to announce except this, and you had already subscribed to it. So that would be kind of silly. But this coming week, there are a few announcements. You'll probably get them on repeat if you're here, but for those of you that are home, if you happen to fast forward past me, I'm not offended. Yeah, I'm not offended. I think I would do the same thing. So we're just trying to catch people as many ways as we can. But there's announcements that will come to you. The other one, we have a team of people that pray for needs that come in on those online communication cards, or even as people are emailing the church and we know about needs going on in the community. We would love for you to be part of that prayer army. So if you text the word pray to that number, you'll be signed up for that list as well. Then we have kids, and that is for kids church and kids programming and anything that has to do with kids or middle school students around here. We'd love to have parents a part of that list. TNN, that stands for the Nourishing Network. That is our partnership that we have with the group that helps to feed students in our area and families through the Edmonds School District. And the last one is Vision. Text the word Vision, and you will be on the list to get information about Vision House. And that is the group that helps fight homelessness. And they have a great program. They are hoping to open. They're still waiting on their permits for occupancy. That's kind of their last step in having, I believe it's 12 new families move in. And we have a Brookview team of people that has already, they're storing items in their garage to fully furnish a bedroom, as well as, I guess it's 2 bedrooms in the house. And we're super excited about that. And then we also have a team of people that's going to set that room up. So being part of that Vision House distribution list just kind of lets you know how you can be involved. A couple of really important things going on as well, and I don't have any slides for them, but I'm really bummed we had to cancel soccer club. I know, super big bummer. So essentially, we had a field secured. And then with the changes to the governor's order, the field director reached out and asked for a safety plan from us, which we promptly gave them, and then never heard anything back, and never heard anything back, and never heard anything back. So I called, left messages, left emails, and haven't heard. I would guess they're a little bit probably not working as many hours with the city, and it's probably just kind of bogged down, but I can't pull together everything we would need to do not having a green light. So today was the day that I said, I think we can't do soccer club. So I'm really bummed about, I know, sad face, Bob. Me too. I hope that God will open the doors for us to do something very soon. And I believe that that's possible. And in that vein, I also want to say that I know that this week, some hard news came to a lot of you parents that I believe that 100% of the districts in our area where all of our Brookview kids go to school are going to be fully online in the fall. And so we are aching with you as parents and what that means for you, and just kind of what does life look like, because I know the spring was hard. And now you're looking at the fall going, we get to do that again. And so we are dreaming of ways to partner with you to, I'm not going to say what we're doing because I don't want anyone to hold me to it because I don't know if we can. But we're talking about having learning communities, learning pods, maybe in homes. Maybe we can set up over here at the church where we're small enough groups where you can come and be with people. That doesn't mean we're going to teach kids. We're not opening a homeschool co-op, but we are just going to open up the doors for some safe relationships so that families can thrive a little bit better than they have been. So I want you to know we're committed to dreaming. We're committed to going before God and asking him, God, what is it that you have for us to do in this season? We want to go with you in it. And so we are kind of laying the foundation for all of that in August and September with the idea that we will begin kind of announcing what that looks like mid-September to late September and rock and roll first part of October for you. So we would covet your prayers just as we go before God and ask him to show us. The board is going to be praying and meeting about it. Our staff will be praying and meeting about it. And then my brain is so full of ideas. I cannot implement every single one of them, but I'm excited about picking a few. So just want you to know we love you, families. We love your kids, and we want to walk with you in this season, however God might open the door for that. And what if we can invite our friends to be a part of that? And what if this thing that we got to do in soccer club was this thing we got to do in the fall and impact people in our community? So as much as there are challenges, we firmly believe that there are opportunities and that we serve a God who is working, even when we can't see it. So I'm stoked. And excited for what God might have for us, even though I'm super disappointed that we don't get to do soccer club in a couple weeks. So there it is. Jason, I'm going to turn service over to you.
Yeah, now we're ready. Now we are ready. Okay. So for the last few weeks, if you've been around or watching online, we've been in this series called Who Do You Say I Am? Because these days in our world, there are all kinds of ideas out there about who Jesus is. Like everybody has a Jesus, and we've been naming all kinds of Jesuses. I won't do that tonight. But these last weeks, I've argued that how you answer that one question, who do you say I am, will shape your life more than anything else. So the way you envision Jesus, and then by default God, will shape you. In fact, I've contended that your vision of God will shape you, even if you don't believe in God at all. See, even if you think that life is just a big cosmic accident and we are all just a product of time and chance, then that vision of humanity and that vision of God, it will shape you. Even if you don't believe in Jesus as anything at all, you'll be shaped by whatever replaces God in your value system, whatever you claim is ultimate, the meaning and purpose of life. Even if you're convinced life itself is meaningless, you will still create some kind of meaning because it turns out human beings can't live without meaning. We are meaning-making creatures. So you will be shaped by whatever you think the meaning and purpose of life is. Is it me, or is there a little bit of like reverb or something, Brian? It feels like, no, it's just, maybe I'm deeper on the stages. Okay. So you will be shaped by whatever you think the meaning and purpose of life is. And maybe that's like individual autonomy. Or maybe you decide it's about sexual expression, or that it's about wealth or power or success or intelligence, that maybe it's really all about more and more and more in the pursuit of more and more pleasure. That maybe for you, it's all about discovering the best coffee on the planet or traveling to the world's most stunning places. Whatever you decide is ultimate is what shapes you. And so we've been looking at this through a statement by A.W. Tozer, the writer, pastor, preacher, who once said, "What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. We tend, by a secret law of the soul, to move toward our mental image of God or whatever it is that we decide is ultimate." And so we've been asking a serious question. What floods into your mind when you think about God? Like when you hear the word God or you think about him, what sort of emotions does that arouse in you? What do you actually imagine him to be like? Now, here's one of the things that has always fascinated me about Jesus is that people would come to him, and they would come to him to talk with him about something. They would have a burning question or a topic of some kind, and they would start the conversation going a certain direction, right? But then very often, Jesus would take the discussion to a completely different place. It's like Jesus had this way of seeing right through people. Like he could see beyond people's surface issues or their questions. Like he could actually see deep into their heart. He could see their motives. It was like he knew their wounds. And because of that, Jesus had some amazing interactions with people. He didn't spend a lot of time doing small talk. He preferred to just cut right to the heart of the most vital issue for that person in their life. And the truth is, we all walk in here with stuff. We all have hopes and we all have dreams. We also have anxieties and we have fears. We all have things in our lives that are a really big deal to us. We all have wounds that haven't completely healed. We all come in here with stuff. And I have a feeling that if you or I were to sit down and talk with Jesus, like he was just walking around the streets of Briar, and you and I were to sit down and talk with Jesus, he would probably shape the conversation pretty fast. Like we would come into it with all this stuff that we're ready to hit him with, and he would turn the conversation a completely different direction. Like if you or I were to grab coffee with Jesus, and I'm sure that he would like coffee, I get the feeling that he would not small talk with you or with me for very long. So for me, I envision if I went to Red Cup Cafe in Mukilteo with Jesus, this stunning place. If you've never been there, you should go. And I'm just sitting with him at an outdoor table, and we're looking over the water down by the Mukilteo Ferry and all of that. And I'm enjoying an iced coffee with a hint of vanilla and splash of cream. And I was just sitting with Jesus across from him on the table, and we could just sort of talk about whatever. I actually don't think that he would allow me to just snivel about sports for very long. Like, hey, Jesus, do you think the Seahawks will have enough pass rush? Hey, Jesus, will this shortened MLB season get in the way of the Mariners' development of their future players, their rebuilding plan? I mean, can you imagine sitting across from Jesus and talking? So if I did that, I bet he would redirect the conversation pretty fast. And before long, we'd be talking about more important things, core things that are happening in my heart and in my mind and in my life, places that my thinking or my heart needs to change. And I get this sense because this is what Jesus would do with people. And I think that he did this because he loved them deeply. And so today we're going to look at a very famous conversation where this kind of happens. It's a story of Jesus talking with a very broken woman, a woman with deep, festering emotional and relational wounds. And Jesus directs the conversation away from all the niceties right to her brokenness. And somehow, and this is what's brilliant about this story, somehow she walks away from that feeling alive and hopeful. She enters the scene hurting and fractured, but as she talks with Jesus, something happens, and she experiences inner healing and wholeness. Now, to really appreciate what's going on in this story, we have to be aware of some cultural stuff that's happening that doesn't make sense to us in our context. First of all, Jesus was Jewish. And for some of you, you might be, he was? Yes, he was. And this woman was a Samaritan. So she lived in a place inside of Israel called Samaria. And here's the thing. The Samaritans were hated by the Jews. And here's why. At one point, Samaria was made up of Jews, just Jewish people, just like the rest of Israel, all of Israel. But back more than 700 years before Jesus, 700 years before Jesus. So in 722 BC, a nation called Assyria invaded Israel under the direction of King Sargon. Now, just a little aside, I love that name, Sargon. Is that not epic? How many of you are like Lord of the Rings fans? Doesn't it sound like something right out of Lord of the Rings? Sargon. Frodo, you must get past Sargon, and you and Sam must take the ring to be destroyed in the fires of Mordor. Right? Sargon. Okay, so more than 700 years before Jesus, in 722 BC, Sargon conquered the northern part of Israel, including Samaria. And what he did is he exiled most of the Jewish people that lived there, and he sent them away in chains. But a few of the Jews were allowed to stay. And then Sargon sent non-Jews from all kinds of other places to go and settle in Samaria. And these non-Jews practiced all kinds of other religions. And as time went by and several generations passed, the Jews that were left in Samaria intermarried with all of these foreigners. And so the people in Samaria became a mixed race with a mixed religion. Well, by the time of Jesus, the Jews in other parts of Israel thought that that was absolutely detestable, and they despised the Samaritans. They were deeply racist toward the Samaritans. So much so that they refused to have any contact with them. Okay, now geographically, Samaria kind of divided Israel in half. We have a map. So if you can see in the bottom part, we have this area called Judea. That's where Jerusalem was. And if you read the Gospels, Jesus is in that area all the time. But Jesus happened to spend a lot of time also up in Galilee. And so Jesus would kind of go back and forth between Judea and Jerusalem and Galilee. But in order to do that, it's really tricky because right smack in the middle is what? Samaria. So he and the disciples are constantly going back and forth. Now, the direct route would go straight through Samaria, but here's the thing. Most Jews refused to travel through Samaria. So instead, they would take a very long path around Samaria. Now, our story for today is about Jesus, a Jew, a Jewish rabbi, having a conversation with a woman at a well in the middle of Samaria. And this is not just any woman. This was a woman with a past. This was a woman, where we find out later in the story, had been married 5 times. Now, that's pretty unusual in our culture, but it was extremely rare in theirs. And not only had she been married 5 times, she was now, again, we find out in the story, living with a man who was not her husband. This was a woman that had lived a very difficult life. Not only did she have a past, but her past was very public, and she lived in a small town. How many of you have ever lived in a small town? She lived in a small town, right? What happens in small towns? People talk. Everybody knew everybody's business. Now, we're not told exactly what happened with her 5 different husbands. I mean, maybe she'd been widowed 5 different times. Can you imagine that? And if that was the case, then here's what would happen. Everybody in that day and age would assume that she was cursed by God. If you are married 5 times, okay, and they all keep dying, there's a sign, that's a sign that something is wrong with you. God is not happy with you. In their belief system, they'd assume she was cursed by God, and so there would be this horrible social stigma. Maybe she wasn't widowed. Maybe she'd just been divorced over and over and over. Maybe her husbands had just walked out on her again and again, which would also carry with it a terrible stigma. So we don't really know what happened. But what's clear is that she's been deeply wounded. Now, Jesus meets this woman at a well in Samaria, and we're told that she comes to the well in the middle of the day, which is really odd because that was the hottest part of the day. Usually, to avoid like the scorching Middle Eastern heat, women came early in the morning or they came late in the day if they were going to come to the well. And usually, women would travel to the well in groups. It's kind of like, can anyone think of a parallel? It's kind of like how where do women go in groups? To the bathroom, yes. And by the way, ladies, what's up with that? Okay, so here's the thing. You will rarely hear one man say to another man, "Hey, Bill, I'm going to the bathroom," right? And Bill just like, "Yeah, right on." So we just go, no. What's the deal with women? Here's the thing, you guys. It makes me wonder what goes on in there, and it makes me nervous a little bit. Okay, in our day, some women, not all women, don't get in a huff. Don't hate me. I don't need an email. I'm not sexist. I'm just a general cultural observation. In our day, some women like to go to the bathroom together. In their day, women went to the well together. And it was this social thing, maybe a little gossip, maybe some informal counseling, maybe just hanging out, just laughing and joking, someone to share life with. But this woman goes to the well. It's in the hot part of the day, and she goes all by herself. Why? Well, probably because she's got no friends. Because she's an outcast. She intentionally chooses to go when no one else will be there. Probably wants to avoid the looks and the whispers. Okay, so imagine this whole scene going down from her perspective. She leaves town and makes her way to the well of Jacob, a very famous well. And it's extremely hot, and she's all alone, and it's like every other day. But on this day, she looks ahead down the road into the distance, and she sees a group of 12 men heading her way on the road. As they get closer, she realizes those are Jewish guys. Whoa, that's weird, because this is Samaria. What's even weirder is it's the 12 disciples. They're walking from the well toward town because Jesus had sent them into town to buy food. She's heading from the town to the well. They're heading from the well to town, and they cross paths. And I imagine that as she passed by, there was no interaction by anybody. She was uncomfortable. The disciples were uncomfortable. And pretty much everyone just kept to themselves, like eyes to the ground, no eye contact. Then when she gets past the disciples and the dust settles a little bit, she looks beyond that into the distance, and sitting at the edge of the well is the figure of a man. And she has no idea what is about to happen. And here's what's utterly amazing about this whole encounter. Everything in the story seems to indicate that this is not a chance meeting, that Jesus went there specifically to meet with her. Okay, here we go. John chapter 4, verse 3. So he, Jesus, left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. It says, now he had to go through Samaria. Remember that. He had to go through Samaria. So Jesus is going to travel with the disciples from Judea to Galilee, and right in the middle of Samaria. Back to the map for a second, right? So they're in this lower part down in Judea, probably from Jerusalem, and they have to go back to Galilee. So that makes sense. But John says he had to go through Samaria. The truth is, he didn't have to go through Samaria. You could go to Galilee from Judea by going around Samaria, which was normal for Jewish people, especially for rabbis. But John says he had to go through Samaria. Scholars don't know why John writes that. Like, there's some debate about that. But here's what I think is going on. The book of John was written by who? John, right. John, the disciple, right? The disciple John. John wrote it many years later. He wrote it toward the end of his life when he reflected back. And my guess is that John's remembering what happened. I'm guessing that Jesus said to his disciples one day, including John, hey guys, we're leaving Judea and we're heading up north to Galilee. And I'm guessing they said something like, cool. But as they headed north, Jesus did the strangest thing. He chose to take the route that went straight through Samaria. And so I imagine the disciples going, whoa, Jesus, you don't want to go that way. That'll take you through Samaria. Jesus is like, I know. But they're like, no, those people are defiled. They're unclean. They don't worship at the temple in Jerusalem. They worship in the wrong place, and they're all a bunch of half-breeds. And if we go to that unclean place where there's all those unclean people, their uncleanliness is going to rub off on us, and then we're going to become defiled, and we're going to become ceremonially unclean. And yet Jesus says something like, guys, I'm going through Samaria. I must go through Samaria. So years later, John's remembering back when he writes the story that Jesus had to go through Samaria. Okay, verses 5 to 8. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. Now, when this woman walked up to the well, she was not expecting Jesus to talk with her. In fact, she's totally confused. She is trying to figure out, what is with all the Jews that I've seen today? And why is this rabbi sitting next to our well all by himself? And she's probably like looking down, avoiding eye contact, but Jesus, he breaks the awkward silence. He looks her straight in the eye and he asks, will you give me something to drink? Now, she doesn't answer his question because she's in shock. She's absolutely stunned that he's even talking to her. She's like, did he just speak to me? What's going on? Why would he even talk to me? Why would he even make a request like that? A Jewish man is asking permission to drink from my jar, to drink after me, to place his lips where I have placed my lips? She's like, this is the craziest thing. This is the craziest day. Now, see, his asking her for a drink was not about getting her to serve him. It was actually just the opposite. And what Jesus is implying is this: I see you as one who's worthy to drink after. I'm not afraid of being defiled by you. And Jesus is communicating compassion and acceptance. And this is totally unexpected for a Samaritan, especially a woman from a Jewish rabbi. So she responds. The Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? And John puts in, he says, for Jews do not associate with Samaritans. He just adds that little editorial note, knowing that maybe people outside of the culture would read it. Now, the woman is essentially saying, now, wait just a minute, Jewish rabbi man. I may not be an educated person. I may not have done a lot of traveling. I'm a pretty simple girl, really. But here's what I know. I know that Jews do not associate with Samaritans. I know that if you drink from my jar, if you put your lips where my lips have been, you'll become defiled. And I know that to you Jews, that's a really big no-no. So what in the world are you doing? Here's what happens next. Starting with verse 10, verses 10 to 15. Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Huh? Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw with and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock? Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." So Jesus, sitting next to the well, gives her this thirst illustration. And here's a kind of a pet peeve of mine. A lot of times, this woman gets made out to be like an idiot. Like, "Oh, living water. That sounds nice. You know, it gets so tiring coming here day after day to this here well. So if you have some kind of special magic water that will make it so I'm never thirsty, I'd love some. Hey, Rabbi man, could I have some magic water?" Okay, you guys, this woman is not an idiot. She's hurting, but she's not stupid. She knows Jesus is speaking figuratively. She doesn't get the metaphor yet, but who would? Living water? Like, what the heck are you talking about, man? But she's interested in where all this is going. She feels something very different from Jesus. He's treated her in a way that no man has ever treated her, Jewish or Samaritan, with dignity and incredible respect. Something's going on. And so she's just kind of playing along. She's curious. She's thinking, okay, I'm not sure what he's getting at with the whole living water thing, but I do want to hear more. Because there's something unique and there's something very special about this guy. I have never met anybody like him. This is all very intriguing. And so she's beginning to open herself up. But then it's like Jesus says the most insensitive thing. Verses 16 to 18. Says, he told her, "Go call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true." That's creepy. Now, what in the world is Jesus doing here? I mean, he suddenly and insensitively brings up all the hurt and the brokenness in her life. Why would he do that? Well, clearly, Jesus knows her situation. He knows all about her. And Jesus goes right to her deepest wound. It's like he's saying, come on. Life has left you with a thirst that you can't quench. Decisions that you've made have left you thirsty. Decisions other people have made have left you thirsty. So come on now, let's be honest. I'm about to offer you living water. But before you can ever take a drink, you need to own up to something. You need to be honest with me. You need to be honest with yourself. You're thirsty. And your attempts to quench your thirst haven't worked out for you. Life has left you thirsty. And she's going, whoa, like, wait a minute. Like, this is getting way too personal. And so she does what I think any of us would do. She changes the subject. "Sir," the woman said, "I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshiped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." Now, she's just doing what most of us would do. She's changing the subject. She's like, "Look, Jewish rabbi man, I'm not comfortable talking with you about my dark past. I'm not comfortable talking about the deep ache inside my soul. So let's just talk more generally about religion. Let's talk about the differences between the Samaritans and the Jews. Let's just talk kind of loftily about theology. That's a lot safer. Let's discuss that. You know, we can think, we think we can worship on this mountain, but you Jews say we should worship in Jerusalem. How about we talk about that and not me and my past life and all of my brokenness? How about we just talk religion instead?" And it's interesting because Jesus is like, okay. And he just kind of goes along. He's all right, we can talk about that. Verse 21. "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the spirit and in truth. Jesus is like, all right, since you brought it up, you should know the Jews are right. Salvation will come from the Jews. The Messiah will come from the Jews. But it isn't ultimately about Jews or Samaritans or the location of where people worship. The thing is, God is up to something. He is about to invite the entire world back to himself. He is going to pour out his Holy Spirit like a river, and people will learn to worship God from anywhere, and none of what you're asking right now will matter a bit. And I think that she decides at that point, it's time to wrap up the conversation. Verse 25, the woman said, well, I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he'll explain everything to us. Right? It's like, okay, let's be done. Someday the Messiah is going to come. He's going to explain all of it. So, us amateurs, we should just step out of this conversation. Jesus says, yeah, you're right. He says, you're right, but hang on. Then Jesus declared, I, the one speaking to you, I am he. I am the Messiah. And somehow, she knows it's true. Something within her just knows. Thinking back over the last several minutes, thinking back over the whole conversation, the way that he looked at her, the way that he treated her, it was different. It was pure. It was right. It was filled with kindness. And then the things that he knew about her, there's no way that he could have known that stuff. And so look at what happens with the rest of the story. It just gets awesome. Just then, his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman. But no one asked, what do you want? Or why are you talking with her? Then, leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They came out of the town and made their way towards him. So she runs into town and tells everybody about Jesus. And even though she was not highly respected, there was something compelling about her testimony. And the people went out of town. They dropped whatever they were doing, and they went out of town to see Jesus. It says in verse 39, many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days. He spent the night in a Samaritan's house. And because of his words, many more became believers. So after they spent time with him, they became believers. They said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said. We now have heard for ourselves, and we know that this man really is the Savior of the world. To me, this is such a powerful story because it rings so deeply true. And here's what rings true. There is a thirst in us that goes deeper than physical thirst. And we try everything we can think of to quench it. Maybe we try relationships. Maybe we try being uber successful. Maybe we try having a lot of nice stuff. Maybe we try thrill seeking. Maybe we try being all dark and dangerous. Or maybe we party a lot. Maybe we try out some mood altering substances. Maybe we switch careers. Maybe we switch cars. Maybe we switch spouses. And then maybe some more stuff. Maybe we'll try that. Try some new experiences. Try a different spouse. Try a different love interest. We think maybe the next big deal will quench this. Maybe the next promotion. Maybe some more substances. Maybe some new thrills. Maybe a third or fourth career. Maybe a new house. Maybe a really nice vacation. Maybe what I need is a series of vacations. But what if the answer isn't more of the same? I mean, when you think about it, how much sand does it take to fully quench your thirst? I mean, the truth is, no amount of sand will ever quench your thirst. Drinking more doesn't help. Sand only compounds thirst. It only amplifies it. And so what many of us do is because we don't know what else to do, that we take things that are good in and of themselves. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not sinful. But we try to get them to satisfy what they were never intended to satisfy, and the thirst remains. and the thirst remains. So maybe we try some things that aren't so good because the good stuff didn't seem to work. So we try stuff that's not so healthy, unhealthy relationships, substance abuse, unhealthy work habits to pursue more success or more money. Maybe we forsake our morals in pursuit of something. We try something destructive. Maybe we try some risky new relationship. Maybe a whole slew of relationships. Maybe something super spicy online. And we end up trying to meet a legitimate longing in illegitimate ways. And it's like we're just pouring more and more sand down our throat. And the thirst just compounds. We start to feel more broken, more desperate, so we get more extreme trying to satisfy the thirst. In fact, my guess is that if you were to come up here and you were to tell us about the chapter of your life, the single solitary chapter of your life that you regret the most, my guess is that it would be a story about an attempt that you made to quench your thirst in a destructive way. And it may have been a very legitimate longing inside of you, but you tried to quench it in an illegitimate way. And not only did your thirst not go away, but because now of bad decisions that you made, your life got even more complicated, and you came away even thirstier. About a decade ago, one of my favorite authors from several years ago, Donald Miller, he wrote a book called Blue Like Jazz. And really, it's kind of a personal book about his story, his own spiritual journey, but he talks about this thirst that he felt and how he tried to quench it. Now, we all have a thirst, and we can all look at the wrong things. But in the middle of this kind of what's really kind of a heady book, he includes a cartoon that he wrote. He illustrates what this looks like with this fantastic little cartoon. And you guys, I absolutely love it. And now some of you have seen this before. I shared it years ago. It's been a long time. But this is great. And sort of to set it up, Donald Miller writes this. He says, I think the things we want most in life, the things we think will set us free, are not the things we need. He says, I wrote a children's story, but it's not really for children. And he calls the story Don Rabbit. The main character in the story is Don Rabbit. Keep in mind he is Donald Miller. Okay, here we go. Let's roll it. There once was a rabbit named Don Rabbit. Don Rabbit went to Stumptown Coffee every morning. One morning at Stumptown, Don Rabbit saw Sexy Carrot. Let's go. And Don Rabbit decided to chase Sexy Carrot. But Sexy Carrot was very fast. And Don Rabbit chased Sexy Carrot all over Oregon. And all over America, all the way to New York City. And Don Rabbit chased Sexy Carrot all the way to the moon. And Don Rabbit was very, very tired. But with one last burst of strength, Don Rabbit lunged at Sexy Carrot. And Don Rabbit caught Sexy Carrot. And the moral of the story is that if you work hard, stay focused, and never give up, you will eventually get what you want in life. Unfortunately, shortly after this story was told, Don Rabbit choked on the carrot and died. So the second moral of the story is, sometimes the things we want most in life are the things that will kill us. That's good. Can we get an amen for Donald Miller? I mean, come on. And so what I want to do is I want to end today with a very simple question. It's a question that you all knew was coming, but it's very simply this. What are you looking to these days to satisfy your thirst? What sexy carrot are you chasing? Because according to Jesus, we've all been created with like this God thirst in us. And apart from God, nothing else can ever satisfy that thirst. You can try success. You can try material stuff. You can travel to the most amazing places. You can eat the finest foods. You can buy nice clothes and look like $1 million everywhere you go. You can try physical relationships and do whatever you want to with that. You can do edgy, spicy stuff. But in the end, Jesus is saying to every one of us, okay, be honest. You're thirsty. There is an emptiness inside of you that nothing else has satisfied. So come to me and drink. You'll find water for your soul. You want people to love you and respect you and admire you and believe in you. But guess what? They never will. Not fully, not purely, not the way you want. But you know what? I will. I know exactly who you can be. I love you. I admire you. I believe in you. You want to find purpose and adventure for your life? Come to me. I want to guide and empower you to do things you could never imagine, supernatural things. It'll blow your mind. If you let me, I'll fill you with vision and strength and wisdom. I'll actually place you in situations, and I'll arrange your life so that you can do stuff that truly matters. If you follow me and listen to me, I'll guide and lead you. I will fill you, and you will see the power of God unleashed in and through you. Do you feel an ache of guilt and regret about your past, about your present? Come to me and drink. I paid for all your sin when I laid my life down for you. Yeah, you have messed up. You have messed up, but because of what I've done, you are completely covered by grace. I'll never bring it up again. From now on, you are a new creation, created in me to do incredible things that God has planned in advance for you to do. Maybe you have fears about what's coming down the road. I don't promise to make it all easy, make it go exactly the way you want, but I promise that I will be with you through it all. I'll never leave your side. And right now, I am preparing a place for you in my Father's house, and one day I will come for you, and we will be together, and you will see me face to face. And from that day on, there will be no more struggle. There will be no more pain. That sense of angst and discontent with the world that sometimes plagues you, it's going to go away because I am making everything new. So trust me and come and drink. You guys, the offer that Jesus is making to us is incredible. He is the living water. And so I want to ask you, what are your eyes fixed on these days? Can it really, truly provide you with what you're looking for? Now, for many of you, this isn't a new thought at all. Maybe you've followed Jesus for a long time, and deep down, you've kind of gone through this process again and again. You fix your gaze on him and he begins to fill you, and then you shift your gaze from him and you find yourself thirsty. So you know that this, but for some reason lately you've been looking elsewhere. You started to pin your hopes on something else. You've taken your eyes off of Jesus and you're finding yourself thirsty. And if that's you, I just want to ask, what's got your attention these days? Now, maybe it's a really good thing. It's just that it's got too much of your attention. Maybe there's just no room for Jesus because Jesus is getting squeezed out. Or maybe for some of you, there's something way more destructive in view. Something that is going to complicate your life. Something that is going to leave you even thirstier. And then others of you are in a different place. The whole idea of coming to Jesus and walking with Jesus and entering into a relationship with Jesus that you can't see, that's invisible like that, that's just totally foreign to you. And yet, it could be that for some of you, as you think about Jesus, as you imagine him having been with you your entire life, him knowing your deepest wounds and your darkest stuff, and yet loving you and wanting you and believing in you, there is something in you that goes, whoa, and is starting to come alive. But you don't know what that is, and you don't know what to do about it. You feel like the woman at the well. Jesus causes you to face things in yourself that you don't want to face, and yet at the same time, something feels very right. There's something in you that craves more. But this is also new, so you're just like, where would I even start? Like, what would I do? Where would I even start? Here's what I'll say. Here's where you start. You start exactly where you are. And you keep putting yourself in places so that you can learn more about Jesus. And you start talking to Jesus about where you really are. You start talking to Jesus about where you really are. You start saying things to him like, Jesus, this is crazy, and I feel really weird even talking to you. But there's something that stirs in me when I start to think about you or I hear about you. I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know how to relate to you. I don't really know how to let you satisfy my thirst. I don't fully understand this living water thing. But there's something about all of this that rings true to me. So would you help me on a journey toward you? Help me to understand this. Set me free to experience this. Help me turn away from all the junk that's been compounding my thirst. Help me to know you. I don't even know where to start, really. There's so much I don't know. So show me what this is all about, because here's what I do know. I am open to you. So meet me where I am, Jesus. Where do you start? You start by just being honest with him, whatever honest is for you. And then you keep putting yourself in places to encounter him. You keep putting yourself around people that know him, people that have learned a little bit and walked with him a little while. And here's the really cool thing about Jesus. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to do the next thing that you already know to do. You do the next thing that you already know to do, and you ask Jesus to meet you there, and then he meets you there, and he shows you another thing, and you go and you do the next thing. And then from there, what do? You do what you know. You do the one thing that you know you need to do, and you go on and on and on and on. This is life with Jesus. This is life following Jesus. You don't get the whole plan on the first day. It doesn't work like that. But here's what I will tell you from my experience. Jesus can do something inside of us that is unexplainable. He can take away anxiety. He can take away fear. He can take away guilt. He can take away a sense of no purpose. He can take that stuff and he can replace it with other stuff, and he can heal it. And I can't explain exactly how it works. Here's what I know. It works. How do I know it works? Because I felt it in me. I felt it in me again and again, and I've watched other people experience it again and again and again. I've seen it over and over, and I have felt it over and over.